Hello there. How are you doing? Good, bright, and beautiful morning. I'm in Arizona. This is the northern part of Arizona. Today, we are actually going to talk about an experience I had a couple years ago in Arizona. What we're talking about today is that parrot rescues are not all created equal. And I'm going to tell you about my experience volunteering at a parrot rescue. And other ethical ways to get birds and ethical ways to support parrot rescues. Now, the first thing I want to say is that rescuing a bird is not like rescuing a dog. I think people who rescue birds are amazing. I support you through and through. Thank you so much for taking in these animals. They live forever, so we really need to have a ton of people out there rescuing parrots. It is so great when you can go to a rescue and find a 5, 10, 15-year-old bird and take that animal in. That's amazing. Thank you so much to all of you. However, rescuing a parrot is not quite like rescuing a dog. Most dogs have that built-in love of people. Dogs have been selectively bred over generations and generations. They are domesticated. That's what that means, is that they've been bred in human captivity and genetically changed so that they are genetically different from their wild cousins, which means they are domesticated. Parrots are not considered genetically different from their wild cousins, generally. And there are some hybrids, but hybrids are not the same as domesticated. But anyways, parrots overall are considered tame if they're in human care. They're captive, they're tame, but they are not domestic. And what this means is that we don't have the built-in personality of wanting to work with a human. We don't have that built-in, you're part of my pack, that dogs have, or that horses are also domestic animals. Horses also have that built-in interest in working, or not even interest in working with people, but like basis of being able to work with people. Parrots don't have that. They are considered genetically the same as their wild ancestors and current wild cousins. So when we rescue a parrot, we don't know what we're getting ourselves into. You could get a parrot that's very sweet at the rescue, and then you take them home, and this is a bird that needs so much attention and is plucking all its feathers out. It's had past abuse issues that lead it to be volatile, emotional, and to not warn you when they're going to bite you, because if you don't know, almost all parrots are going to start out with a basis of warning you when they don't like something. So you might see the feathers on their neck come up, the head go down a little bit. Yes, sometimes this is asking for scritches, but if you know parrots, you can kind of tell the difference. You might see that behavior of rubbing their beak on something, and that's basically saying, like, this is mine. Get away from here. And so I'll post a video of that here with, like, she was mad at my foot. Bean Dip doesn't like feet. And I was just laying down and she did not like my foot. So this is that rubbing behavior that's kind of a forget you kind of behavior. And she did this instead of biting, which we way prefer to see the aggressive behavior when they are upset instead of biting. But what I'm getting at with those rescue parrots is that you might end up with an animal that's boundaries have been pushed so many times that they stop giving warnings and they just give the aggression or the bite. And the reason for that is, after a while, if you keep giving warnings and someone is not listening, and I know I'm anthropomorphizing, but you're eventually just going to be like, no, back off. This always works. And with a lot of birds, especially the bigger ones, the bite works. They want you to leave them alone. They're going to bite and you're going to leave them alone. They want you to do something like get off your phone. They're going to bite and you're going to drop your phone. They're going to bite and you're going to drop the food you have. And birds that have a history of not having their needs listened to are a lot more likely to be bitey. And this is going to make them a lot harder to train. And this is my biggest issue with rescue parrots. Bean Dip is not a rescue. I got Bean Dip when she was a baby from a big box pet store that we don't want to support. But I do want to be honest with you that is where I got her, just because I think it's only fair to tell you that, like, I did this unethical thing of getting my parrot from a unethical source, big box pet store. And I don't think you should do that. You can look up breeders. A lot of rescues will have, or bird stores will have, some kind of deal with a breeder. So see who they're talking to. So yeah, that's kind of my disclaimer on... Hi, Beanie. You want to come over here? Come. That's kind of my disclaimer on rescue parrots. They're not quite like rescue dogs, and you don't know what you're getting yourself into. So training and socializing and getting along with them could be a lot more difficult. However, if you want to rescue, please rescue. That's super important. So let's get into the big topic of this video, though, that not all rescues are created equal. And this is where I'm going to tell my story of the time that I worked for a bird rescue. I volunteered at a bird rescue. I was there every day in Arizona. And I actually had a lot of issues. The more that I spend time with birds and research, the more I learn that this place was not doing the most up-to-date best care for their birds, but much worse. They had a contract that would keep their customers, or anyone who got a bird from them, from doing the most up-to-date best care for their bird. So what was that contract? Let's start with that. So the contract basically said that if you adopted a bird from this place, you had to bring the bird back every month for wing clipping and nail trimming. And I support the nail trimming, like trim your bird's nails. But I do not support wing clipping. You don't have to free fly your bird, and free flight is flying a bird outside to allow them to keep their wings. But they fly. They're birds. Let them fly. Leave their wings intact. And you can train them to fly to you in your house if you're worried about not being able to catch them. But I think wing clipping and a lot of the more recent research on parrots has supported the idea that we see fewer behavioral issues and less obesity in birds who are fully flighted. So I was strongly against that contract. I don't know if it was particularly enforceable, because once you leave with the bird, what are they going to do? But I was strongly against that contract. The second thing I was against was the way that the rescue priced their adoptable birds. So all the birds were turned over. You are so loud. She's begging for treats. Sorry about the squeakies. Anyways, all the birds were surrendered to the rescue at no cost to the rescue, right? Like, people just couldn't keep a parrot anymore, so they brought them in to the rescue and turned them over. Point being, they did not pay any money for these birds, just like a dog shelter, right? And obviously they paid for the upkeep. They did food, and there was like one person who got paid to be there, and everyone else was pretty much a volunteer who like cleaned cages and filled waters and stuff. We'll get to that. But then they would price the birds insanely high. And I am behind having a high adoption fee, just to ensure that an animal goes to a home that A, can afford it, and B, really wants the animal and isn't just making an impulse purchase. And sometimes this high adoption fee can really help. to me, I think $150 to $200 is a high enough adoption fee, right? They were also bringing in money because they had a Parrot store in the front half of the rescue where you could buy toys and stuff. So, like, that's bringing in money. And then the other way that they brought in money is every time people brought their birds in to have their wings clipped and their nails trimmed, that was pay by donation, so whatever you thought it was worth. So anyways, they were having some money come in, and like I said, I'm for high adoption fees, but I think $200 is plenty to ensure that a person actually wants the animal. This place, they had a conure. He was like 4. His name was Kiwi, and he could say Kiwi. He wasn't nearly as social as Bean Dip, and they had him priced at like $800. I have seen green cheeks in big box pet stores. I know we're against big box pet stores, but also from breeders, anywhere from $400 to $800, but $800 is the most expensive I've ever seen a green cheek. I'm sure there's somewhere that they're more expensive than that, but that's pretty expensive green cheek conure. And this bird was of unknown age, minimally socialized, not like a huge talker. He talked more than Bean Dip, right? Like, she doesn't really say anything. And he did say his name. But that was outrageous, I thought. And when I brought it up, the person who ran the rescue was like, oh no, it's fine. That's normal for these birds. No, it's not. That's not an appropriate rehoming fee for a rescue. And that was consistent with all of the rescues. I think they had an eclectus for $3,000 or $4,000. Yes, an eclectus is a unique species. This one was a very nice bird. I really liked him. But that's not an appropriate rescue rehoming fee. It's not. There was not $3,000 or $4,000 of work going into that bird. He was there for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. He was a great guy. He was a really cool bird. But he wasn't there for that long, and that is not an appropriate rehoming fee. That is someone trying to make money on rehoming birds. So let's get into the care of these birds, because maybe the care that these birds in this rescue were receiving would justify this rehoming fee, right? No. So one of the things that hugely peeved me that they would do in this rescue is that they would refill the water twice a week. They had 2 days that were refill water days. And otherwise, they would only refill the water if the bird pooped in it. So if you don't know, which I think this is kind of common sense, because think about how you want your water. You should be replacing your bird's water at least once a day, whether or not they pooped in it, right? Especially since a lot of birds like to put their food in their water. If I tend to replace Bean Dip's water if she takes a bath in it, if there's a lot of food in it, and obviously if she poops in it, and every single day. So you should be replacing bird water every single day, at the very least, and if they poop in it, at the very least, but definitely every day, regardless of how clean it looks. And this woman, now there were a lot of rescue birds here. I understand that it would take time, but she had volunteers, so she had free labor. And she would only replace the water twice a week unless the bird pooped in it. And sometimes there would be water that, like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, hey, the bird is putting their food in the water. And so I would replace those. And she's like, oh, it's okay. They didn't poop in it. No. Replace your bird's water every day at the very least. So I didn't like that. They also only cleaned the cages once a week. But that, in most cases, I don't love it, but it can be okay. If you only have one cage to clean it as often as you can. Or at least spot clean. Like, I do a lot of spot cleaning for Bean Dip's cage. But yeah, so it's not like these birds were getting the best of care in that way. Were they getting a lot of attention? No, they were not getting a lot of attention. The volunteers would take out the birds and give them some attention. And the owner would take out the birds and give them some attention, but it was maximum an hour a day per bird. And I think we've talked about this before. These are highly social animals. I try to give Bean Dip 4 hours of out of cage time per day, some of which is training and personal interaction. Some of it is grooming, but all of it is some kind of attention. Like, she hangs out on me, with me. She's grooming me right now. Is that what she's doing? Yeah. So she's getting attention from me when she's out of the cage. And usually exercise and mental stimulation. So 1 hour generally of just sitting on a shoulder, not enough. Not enough. And this woman, who ran the rescue, I was like, hey, I could train some of these birds. Like, we could have them, it would make them more adoptable, would justify our insane rehoming fees a little bit. And we could, like, you know, get them some exercise, get them some mental stimulation. Well, this woman knew that seeds were not good for birds, right? She understood that. But she took it a step further. No, we don't train our birds, because if we trained them with seeds, if we trained them with treats, then they might get fat. What? I mean, yeah, I guess if we trained them a lot with treats, but the main culprits of those fatty liver disease and obesity and heart disease in birds are, and I've said this before on this channel, sunflower seeds and peanuts. So I support not giving sunflower seeds. I support not giving peanuts. The rescue would give the birds peanuts on an almost daily basis as enrichment, though. But they weren't working for them. And they would get like a whole shelled peanut, so they would have to open up the peanut, and that's like 2 of the little pieces of peanut, you know, the whole peanuts. And I was like, well, let's make them do stuff. We can cut those peanuts into teeny pieces, and then they'd be getting the same amount. No, we don't train our birds, because then they'll get fed too much. So that's a lack of enrichment. I use safflower seeds to train Bean Dip, which are still fatty. We don't want to give them too many, but there's a trade-off here. We want to have a treat the bird will work for. Bean Dip doesn't like to work for her pellets. Some birds do. If you get your bird to work for your pellets, good for you. I have not figured that one out yet, because I just don't do enough training to feed her solely during training time with pellets. So she always has access to them, or not always, but like she gets them every day, so she's not really all that interested in working for them. But anyways, you can use some treats for training, for enrichment. That's okay. And this rescue did not want to use any treats for training. So yeah, when I did eventually stop volunteering there. I'm not super proud that I ever gave them my time, but I do think that I enriched some of the birds' lives. I got some of them to be a lot more social, because I would take them out a lot more than they were otherwise being taken out, and I would change the water and clean things. So I like to think that I was positive impact on the birds, but unfortunately I also supported this rescue that I kind of don't support anymore, just because of the way that they treated the animals. Point being, not all rescues are created equal. Let's talk about a good rescue. We interrupt this video to remind you that I have a Patreon. It's only $2 per month, or you can join for free. And I wanted to let you know that the trick tutorials are in the collection called Trick Tutorials. You can just look for collections. There are 6 videos in there, including recall training, so how to get them to come to you if you have like a flighted bird in your house. Fetch, how to get them to bring something back to you. Ring toss, how to get them to stack the little kid rings on top of the thing. And how to fly through hoops. So those are all on there, as well as how I trained Bean Dip to skateboard, which is more of a documentary while I was doing it than a how I trained it. So you can go check that out. Again, it's only $2 a month. I try to do about 2 videos a month. There's also a section for relaxing videos of just Bean Dip chilling, and stuff like that. So I think it's a good price. You should absolutely check that out if you think so too. You can start as a free member. I look forward to seeing you over there. I also have a Redbubble. Redbubble just allows you to order stickers from me. There's a lot of stickers of Bean Dip, and you can also check out the collections such as Parrot pieces over in my Redbubble. Or if you're super cool, you can check out the ski stuff, which is all my skiing stuff over on Redbubble, or just look at all of it. If you want, you don't have to spend any money if you don't want to. I just wanted to let you know that that's there. I know this is going to be a rough holiday season for a lot of people, so I just appreciate you watching this video, sharing, commenting if you like. Thank you so much. Let's get back to what we're talking about. So I'm going to reiterate here that rescuing a bird is not for everyone, because rescue birds are not quite like rescue dogs, and you're going to likely have a lot of different problems with rescue birds. For this reason, you can go to breeders and bird stores, and the way that I would vet those stores is I would definitely go stop by the breeder, see how they're testing for genetic issues in the parents. They should be doing this every year. See if they're socializing the birds, if they're hand feeding them, how the parents are, if you have access to the breeders. Or you can go to a bird store. So stores like Everything Birds in Tampa, Florida, which I heard about through the African Gray Journal, who's another YouTuber. You should go check that out. They have a relationship with their breeders, and they don't seem to clip wings, so that's really important to me. And you can check for stuff like that, like whether or not they're clipping wings. A lot of stores will. I don't know that it's necessarily a deal breaker, as long as they don't say that you have to. You can also adopt. So how I would vet a adoption center or a bird rescue is that I would try to volunteer there for a while and see what's going on. Are they socializing their birds? Are they training their birds? Are there volunteers working with the birds? How often are they changing the water? Are they charging rehoming fees that make sense? To the fact that maybe a bird is untrained or unsocialized or has unknown origins. Do the rehoming fees kind of reflect that kind of thing? And make sure to research market price, because if you know what breeders are selling these birds for, the rescue rehoming fee should be lower than your average breeder fee, because you don't know the origin or the history of the rescue birds. And that's not, you should get a discount. That's, I don't like to support a rescue that seems to be trying to make money on the birds that they're rehoming. They can make money in other ways, but they shouldn't be turning a huge profit on the birds that they are getting for free and rehoming. Then the other thing that you can do when you're volunteering at a bird rescue is a lot of the times you can start interacting with the birds and the bird that you want. This is also a really good way to figure out what kind of bird you want. Volunteer at some bird rescues and see if there's any birds that you get along with really well. Do you really like yellow-nape Amazons? Do you really dislike ringnecks? Ringnecks are hard to socialize, and they won't stay socialized. They're also a bird that tends to fly to new locations and find new mates, which can be a problem if it's likely that your bird could get out. So these are all some things that I would look for in a bird rescue. Just, you know, make sure to do your research. Do as I say, not as I do. I did get bean dip from a big box pet store that we don't want to support. But if you did that too, oh well, you're here. So you're trying to do the best you can for that bird now that you got them. And that is what matters. Thank you so much for watching. Have a cookie for dinner if you want it. I'm about to make myself some forest ramen, which is just ramen. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.